you so much.
Well, we are proud to introduce Mr. Eriks Knoll from Knoll in Austria, Österreich.
Hello.
Would you like to tell me a little about yourself and to the consumers that are watching?
Well, as you mentioned, Eriks Knoll is my name, and I'm a winemaker in the wine growing area Wachau.
Something very special with your bottles.
Is
The labels, they are fantastic.
Can we show them?
Really. Can you get the focus on them?
Yeah, I can see them. I'll focus them afterwards.
So what is the idea behind the label?
There is no idea behind the label.
But how come?
We use this label since 1962, so since the 61 vintage, and at that time obviously people didn't think about idea behind labels. A label was something to identify the winery, some space where you could write the wine names on it, the single vignettes and the variety. And in this case, my grandparents, my grandfather has taken a label from an artist that was made in the late 50s, and that is a painting in my uncle's restaurant. And most of the wine they produced, or all the wine they produced, they sold in the restaurant. And when they started to bottle, they said, well, we need a label. And the clients of the restaurant were the first consumers. So they said, with this label, the people would easily recognize where the wine comes from. On plus, they knew the artist, Siegfried Steutzner, pretty well, who did a lot of landscape paintings back in the 20s to 60s. And he was living there too. So they said, well, the artist might be flattered if we use his painting as a label. And that's the history. And we didn't change it, so we still stick to it somehow.
I love it. I love it. I mean, you never forget it. If you once have seen it, you never.
Yes. Well, that's even more important. There's people who don't like it, but they like the wine, and they won't find the wine again because they hate the label and they know that's what they look for.
So, tell me a little about your wines. We are going to try taste some of the wines,
yes.
And even 2013.
Yes, I brought some of the 13s just on the airplane, the newly released vintage. The Federspiel wines. Federspiel is our medium body style. It's wines from 11.5 degrees of alcohol to 12.5, always dry, not chaptalized, and they must be part of the Wachau area. So the wineries who produce wines with Federspiel or Smaragd names have to be situated in the area. They have to have only grapes used from the area of Wachau, and that's basically it.
Yeah. But I was amazed that it's already bottled. Is it already bottled, or did
Yes.
you just bottle it?
The medium style of wine is already bottled and was released around Easter.
Oh.
Now, we have to realize that Austria is a country where people release their new wines very early.
Yeah.
So of the 2013 vintage, the first wines you'd find in November, and in January, I think there is a good amount of wines of 13 on the market. So with releasing ours in April, we are pretty late with the medium bodied wines. And that is because our style of wine is fresh, fruity, varietal. We don't have second fermentations, we don't have storing in oak barrels. So after the fermentation and the clarifying process, the wines are pretty much ready in their development. Grüne Veltliner is Austria's absolute national grape. I think we produce about 30% of Grüne Veltliner in Austria, so only one variety makes almost 30%, which is high, and it's fantastic because it represents Austria so well. That it's the real identification wine for the country.
And it's perfect with the gastronomy also in Austria with these
Yes.
cultures and things like that.
in Austria, but also in a lot of other areas. Grüne Veltliner is a variety that is not super aromatic, but extremely supportive to food. It's I'd say it's our best food wine. We can accompany from cold starters or warm starters, always depending on what it is, of course. But lighter dishes.
For Swedish gastronomy, it's perfect with all our marinated herrings and
Absolutely,
salmon and things like
absolutely. Even red meats with powerful aged Grüne Veltliners can be a great match.
No.
It's a very mineral year. This year we have good acidity in both varieties, Grüne and Riesling. Can I pour you?
Yes, good effect. Thank you.
Welcome. It's very fresh. It's a very classical Grüne Veltliner. The vintage 2013 is an extremely classical Wachau vintage. Good acidity, good ripeness. The wines have good power. They have a very tight body, but there is always some cool, refreshing acidity components. Very appetizing wines. Yes. The Cabinet is a speciality for us as a winery because we are talking about a wine which is not grown in the Wachau. And as members of Vinia Wachau, who is the owner of the brand names Punkvin and Smaragd, we are allowed to have only very, very limited vineyards outside of Wachau. Maximum 10%. And the wines that we produce there, we are not allowed to name with our brand names. We have to have different names. We have to avoid anything that talks about Wachau or Vinia Wachau as an association. So the Pfaffenberg Riesling Cabinet is something a little bit out of our normal portfolio, but it is a great vineyard, and that's why we still have it. We don't get rid of it. We didn't want to lose those great grapes. Style-wise, the Cabinet in our glasses is the same as it would be Federspiel in the Wachau. So we stay below 13 degrees of alcohol, we are dry below 4 grams of residual sugar, we don't chaptalize. We treat the grapes just the same, and actually these grapes grow about 300 meters from the grapes from this Grüne Veltliner. So it's really close by. We can see the Pfaffenberg from our house even. It's very close. But due to legal borders, it is not part of Wachau. Now 11, a hot, dry year with a little less primary fruit characters, but a very tight, concentrated vintage that, in my opinion, has a very, very good ability to age. And other than the 13, where you drink because you like the fruit characters and the freshness and the vibrant acidity, the 11 vintage will be one that you will like in 2, 3, 5 years as a food wine because it's so supportive. It has a lot of, it has a very strong physiological ripeness. It has a very good tannin structure, a good backbone, but it's not as loud. It's a little bit more silent, it's a little bit more smooth. And
not on the fruity side.
No,
it's more like
absolutely not.
Soy.
It's on a very soily, on a very mineral side, and it's on a silent side, where the 13th is like loud. Here I am. That's what I am. That's the vintage. But the 11s are not as loud. They are very laid back, and therefore I think as a pairing character, it will be a very, very good vintage for the future.
And this is a Smaragd.
This is Smaragd.
And that's also a special class in Wachau. It's
Smaragd?
only in Wachau you use Federspiel, Steinfeld.
Correct. It's it's brand names that we only can use in the Wachau for wines that have been grown in the Wachau, and only for members of the Association Vinia Wachau, which is the 200 grower association.
And so, what about Smaragd? That's more ripeness.
Smaragd is more ripeness. It's we said Federspiel between 11.5 and 12 degrees, and super dry. Smaragd is the top level, so 12.5 and higher must be dry according to the wine law, so below 9 grams, and not chaptalized. Now 2008 is a vintage that was not super high in sugar. We have only 13% of alcohol. There was some botrytis content in the grapes. And it's an extremely, it was late harvested, but it's an extremely concentrated wine, concentrated fruit. We had to wait pretty long until we reached the sugar content we wanted. There is high acidity, also due to the botrytis, due to the vaporization of water from the berries that have raised the sugar content, but also the acidity. And today, after now 5-6 years, it's a wine that has, for me, a good pronunciation on botrytis characters, but also that has a very strong Riesling character. And I like it a lot because these days we talk so much about the bad influence of botrytis to white wine. And I think this is a perfect example that botrytis itself is not automatically bad. It can add a positive fruit character to especially Riesling. And I think if it's not overwhelming, if it's not the main character of a wine, it can be absolutely supportive and it can open another dimension of Riesling character.
And I think this is so perfectly developed, I think, and it's so balanced in the botrytis character with this apricot, but it's not taking over and not getting too much of this bitter orange thing. It's more like it's balanced and it's just feel a more complexity.
That's absolutely right, and I think this is it's a good example of a wine that can have both. That shows concentration, that shows a classic and very clear and bright Riesling fruit, but still has a little bit influence of botrytis that makes it even more complex, even more concentrated, and it's a strong argument against the idea that botrytis itself is something bad in dry wine.
Good luck.